Peter, I think you must be one of the most moral people in the world. You've certainly got one of the most logically thought-out ethical positions in the world. And yet, precisely because of its logical consistency, you seem to get a lot of flack coming from two quite different directions.
Well, that's certainly true. On the one hand, I'm critical of the attitudes that most people in society have towards animals. I think that we don't take the interests of animals seriously enough, and in a way I think it's an implication of Darwinism that we should take them more seriously, or at least that it breaks down some of the barriers that have separated us from animals. But on the other hand, because I don't think that humans are special just in virtue of being a member of the species Homo sapien, I think that if you have humans who are, for example, severely damaged at birth, that it's not wrong to end their lives. So I think that in some cases, human beings don't have a right to life because they don't have the possibility of having a worthwhile and meaningful life. And so, of course, I get flack from conservative moralists and conservative Christians from that perspective. Precisely, the point is that we recognize that we are animals. And of course, once we recognize that, then we have to ask the question, well, what's so different about us? I mean, admittedly, we have capacities to reason and to use language that exceed any non-human animals, although I do think some non-human animals can reason to some degree and can communicate in various ways. But I mean, that's not enough. For me, what's crucial is that we share with them the capacity to suffer.
What's that famous quote from Bentham?
Right, yes. He says, he asks what can trace what he calls the insuperable line between humans or beings that matter, that count morally, and beings that don't. And he says, well, suppose it was reason or something. He says a horse is more reasonable than a human infant. And then he says, but suppose it were otherwise, why would it matter? The question is not whether they can talk, nor whether they can reason, but can they suffer?
Can they suffer?
Yeah, I think that that's crucial.
Yeah. Peter, I want to come back to the question of food and vegetarianism and things. First, let's go to an extreme. I suppose it would follow from your logic that there should really be no objection to cannibalism, provided the human victim, I suppose, either has given his consent or has been accidentally killed, and maybe what about eating roadkills?
Well, I mean, yes, if you're not responsible for the death and your practice of eating it is not going to encourage drivers to kill more animals, I don't think there's any problem with roadkill.
Human roadkills?
Well, I mean, then you get a question, I guess, of, well, what do the relatives think of it, and would the human have wanted this? Maybe most people would not like the idea that they would be eaten after they die, and we do try and respect people's wishes for after they die. We, follow their wills and so on.
Using animals for research, would that be of greater value than eating them?
Oh, yes. I mean, if it was serious research, I mean, part of my problem is, of course, I think because we think so little of animals, we could, people do almost anything with them. I mean, fortunately now we're having less, say, cosmetic testing, but still, when you look at experiments that are done, a lot of them, by no stretch of the imagination, could be said to be for some great benefit for humanity.
That's absolutely true.
So I think we ought to be very tough on those, but I would have to acknowledge that if there is a real benefit, if you really have some prospect of helping a large number of people who you couldn't help in any other way if we've explored all the other avenues, I suppose I would say, yes, you could justify animal testing. But I have to say also, because I don't think this species barrier is so important, that if you could make similar progress or even greater progress by testing on a human being with severe brain damage at a similar level, and if the parents, let's say, or the relatives consented to that, I would also say you could justify that.
Yeah.